channel, bringing smiles to the world. We're hitting first base. Marty Lurie with friends. Home run, you know the ways and the trends, the stories all with the match of the block. It's Marty and friends. Marty and friends.
I love it. It's always the best part of the show. That is my granddaughter, Ruby Barmay, who is a wonderful singer. She wrote that song and performed it, and she's an 11th grader, and she's
amazing.
Amazing. So Ruby, we love you. Thank you, honey, for getting us started. All right, nice to have everyone with us. Marty Lurie and Friends, talking ball, and we're joined tonight by Sarah Sanchez, who is a tremendous fan of sports, which we really like to follow her on Twitter. And I did write down your Twitter. I did do it. And that is BCB_Sarah, SARA. And she's part of the Cubs sort of entourage of deciding what's right and what's wrong with the Chicago Cubs, and a little bit of Midwest sports as well. So Sarah's been on our show before, and we welcome you. Things good?
Yeah, it's great to be a Cubs fan right now in Wrigleyville. They have an off day today, but coming back home tomorrow, leading the Central. And, you know, we had our ups and downs a little bit so far this season, but man, that offense looks good.
All right. And Connor Grossman joins us, and Connor and I spent a lot of time in the press box, and I encouraged him not to go back to college, to just keep the job he had. He was doing such a good job, KMBR and things like that, but he went back to Syracuse and graduated and has a very nice journalism career now, and does something just about every day, which I really enjoy. And Connor, I'll let you tell the fans what you're doing these days.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. I write a newsletter after Giants games called Giants Postcards. It's a short 3, 4, 5 paragraph just summary of whatever people are talking about after a Giants game. It's about the length of a postcard, you might say. And then I also do a podcast with Kerry Crowley, who I know is definitely a friend of this program. And it's also called Giants Postcards. So you can listen to that wherever you get your podcasts. But yeah, it's great to be on with you, Marty. And time will tell if you were right, if I should have gone back to Syracuse or not.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about postcards. How does someone subscribe to that? How do we get to that?
Yeah, you can go to www.giantspostcards.com, and you'll get taken right to the page, and you can enter your email, and you can read past postcards from the first couple weeks of games from this season, and follow along for the ride going forward.
All right, cool. Well, I like doing these shows when we follow a day game, because it's like me back again. I'm doing the post game again, as That's I did for so many years. I like it. But the Phillies did even the series today against the Giants. If you're joining us and you didn't know what happened, they did win the game 6-4. And Jordan Hicks gave up 5 in the first inning. They just couldn't get anybody out. And a walk is in the middle of that. And Castellanos gets a hit, who I can't believe he ever gets a hit. He got a hit. And then Matos was playing center field today. He went back to the wall on an Alec Boehm long shot that he hasn't done anything this year, and it hit off Matos's glove as he hit the wall, and Boehm got a triple, and that's with the 5 runs that the Phillies put up. And then Jordan Hicks really settled down and pitched great the rest of the way, and the Giants pecked away as they usually do, but it wasn't enough that they lost at 6-4. Hicks was aided today by 3 double plays and a pickoff. He had some traffic on the bases, but he had some help getting out of that trouble. Eric Miller came in, and I just want to note it because it was a 5-4 game in the 8th inning when they brought him in, and he ended up with a couple of walks. And, Bob Melvin is doing his thing, managing this ball club and giving guys days off no matter what. He had Sam Huff behind the plate today, and Sam Huff looked like the linebacker for the Giants. Sam Huff. He was having a lot of trouble blocking balls and wild pitches and everything, and it ended up costing Eric Miller a run in that 8th inning, and that made it 6-3. And then the Chapman, who is hot again. This is the streakiest player I've ever seen in my life. He's hot again, and he knocked one out to make it 6-4, and Alvarado then shut the door in the ninth inning. And the Giants did lose at 6-4, but Hicks 5 in the first, then he settled down the rest of the way and gave the Giants 7 innings. They're in a stretch of 17 games in a row. So that brings me to Sarah. The Chicago Cubs are what a first month of baseball for them. We haven't seen the National League West at all. That's basically all you've seen is the National League West, including 2 games in Japan with the Dodgers.
Yeah, we played a bunch of games against the Dodgers, a bunch of games against the Diamondbacks, some games against the Padres. The Cubs have had a really rough schedule to start this season, both in terms of the teams that they have played, but also in terms of the travel that they have done. They've had 2 West Coast series already with a series at Wrigley Field in between. So I could not be happier with what they've done with that start to the season. That offense that you're seeing from the Chicago Cubs right now, you're getting a real idea of what a bat like Kyle Tucker does and how much it lengthens that offense. But I will say, I looked at this early start of the schedule and I thought there was a non-zero chance the Cubs were going to be 5 or 6 games back coming back to Chicago this weekend. And here we sit, they're in first place. They're going to start a series at Wrigley against the Diamondbacks again, starting tomorrow.
Yeah, the Diamondback series down here was interesting. You guys split the series, but in the last game, the Cubs had the lead in the 8th inning. I think it was 3-2, and they gave up 8. And Craig Counsell just couldn't stop the bleeding. What is the story with the Cubs? You're right. It's the Yankees, Cubs, and Giants, believe it or not. Connor, believe it or not, scoring all the runs in baseball. I can't believe it. But what is it with the Cubs and the bullpen? That, to me, seems to be the big issue. We could talk about Talion and Boyd and Steele's injury and all that, and Brown's gave him a good game. But what's up with the bullpen?
I think the Cubs have a tale of two bullpens going on right now, maybe even 3. They have an elite bullpen that can close down a game with the best of them, and that is the Julian Merriweather, Porter Hodge, Ryan Presley bullpen. Presley's been a little bit up and down, but he's mostly been good. And you give those 3 guys a 2 or 3 run lead, they are going to close that down. The Cubs are going to win, and that's what they've done in most of their victories, or they've had blowouts. However, they have a secondary bullpen, and that secondary bullpen is not locked down at all. That's why you saw a bunch of roster moves just yesterday. Eli Morgan hitting the injured list, sending down Nate Pearson, who's a flamethrower, but a flamethrower who's really struggled with walks, and bringing back up Luke Little, Daniel Palencia, some guys who they're hoping can fill some of those roles. I'm not sure either one of them can do it. I mean, we saw Luke Little walk 4 guys and really put that Padres game out of reach last night. And, the Cubs have had a couple of losses now that are of that heartbreaking variety where you should have won that game. And when you find yourself up a crooked number in the 7th inning or later and the bullpen can't close it down, those are the types of games that haunt you later. I hope they fix their secondary bullpen issues sooner rather than later, because you can't throw Julian Merriweather, Porter Hodge, and Ryan Presley every single game.
Yeah, I hear you. Connor, let's talk a little bit about the Giants and this game today. And I don't know what you're going to write about tomorrow. I look forward to getting your postcard. But the umpire, Phil Cuzzy, who always has trouble with the Giants, is whenever you mention Phil Cuzzy's name with the Giants, there's an incident. It goes back to 2010 at the plate that I put out on Twitter, and people responded.
Against the Mets?
Yeah, against the Mets. Ishikawa. I was probably sitting next to you at that point. Who knows? But Ishikawa scored, and then they called him out, and it cost the Giants a very big game. Obviously, 2010, the way that season ended up. But what's your take a little bit on today's game with the Giants? Let's hear it.
Yeah, no, I think the story starts with Jordan Hicks, and 2 games in a row now, a Giants starter has completely imploded in the first inning, putting Bob Melvin in a really tricky spot. Marty, you brought up that the Giants are in the midst of a stretch of 17 straight games where Melvin's hands are a little bit tied. How many times can you get the bullpen working in the first inning, weighing your options that you got to not only get through these 9+ innings, but the next however many days in a row. So it's a little bizarre to consider how badly Hicks blew up in the first inning, but then take that out of the frame and he threw 6 shutout innings. So from a bullpen management perspective, it works out for Melvin, but Hicks is definitely a little bit of a question mark. And I think the Giants rotation as a whole right now is a little bit bigger of a question mark. It's really hard to know what you're going to get with Robbie Ray, with Jordan Hicks, with Justin Verlander. In some respects, Logan Webb and even Landon Roop seem more reliable than the three veterans that are kind of in the middle of the Giants rotation. So that's where my mind looks today, is how reliable is this Giants rotation going to be? I think we thought it was maybe a little safer spot for this team than it might actually be. It's early, of course. It's April 17th, but I'm a little concerned about how long or how much the Giants can rely on this starting rotation.
Yeah, coming out of spring training, I actually thought the rotation was really, really solid. They had extra pitchers in Birdsong, and they didn't know what to do with him, with Kyle Harrison, with Ragsdale. They had all the Carsons, that could have been on the team. But, yeah, this starting pitching has really been dicey, and they don't have command. It could be the weather. This is a tough road trip. And, Sarah, you know this in baseball. They went to New York. The weather was awful. I mean, they played a game. They won at 9-1 that, they couldn't wait for the sixth inning, to call this thing, an official game so they could end it. It was one of those things. And then the whole weekend in New York, it was rainy, and Will Warren beat him. And then Webb was gone, in 5 innings on a Sunday, And then they go to Philly, and the wind is blowing like crazy.
It's like candlestick.
Really. And it's been really quite a road trip. So I'm going to chalk some of it, Connor, a little bit to the weather of being in Arizona, and then all of a sudden being in San Francisco, which is different enough. And also this road trip has been tough. Now they go to Anaheim.
Right.
To take on the Angels. And believe it or not, in a small sample, they're 2-4 against left-handed starters, 9-2 against righties. So they get the changeup artist, Tyler Anderson, and then they get, Sarah, one of your favorites, Kyle Hendricks, who they should hammer. And then on Sunday, they get Kikuchi. So what do you think about that, Sarah?
Well, April baseball weather is always a little bit mercurial. You never know if you're going to get an 80-degree game with the wind blowing out like the Cubs are supposed to have at Wrigley tomorrow, if you're going to be sitting in 40-degree weather with the wind chill and nothing leaving the ballpark, right? I mean, that is sort of the game that you play, particularly in the upper Midwest and in the Northeast this time of year. I will say, though, that Kyle Hendricks has been a little bit sneaky good for the Angels this year. I wonder if the Cubs kind of wish that maybe they had, spent a tiny bit of money and kept Kyle Hendricks for some depth and just some good times in their rotation, especially after losing Justin Steele. He's such a fascinating pitcher. He is a location specialist. He's lucky if he can throw 86, 87, 88 miles per hour, and it does not matter, because if his command is on, he is going to get you out. And we used to have one of those, it looked like a little political sign. It just said, Kyle Hendricks, all he does is get guys out. And truly, that's sort of been what he's done for the Angels so far this year. I love to see it.
All right. Well, we're going to see him Saturday. And I think Webb is in that series as well. Roop is in there, and Verlander goes on Sunday. We'll see him again. Let's talk Verlander a little bit, because seeing him in spring training, and Sarah, were you down here in Arizona at all? Did you come down?
Unfortunately, I was not. I was there for the Arizona Fall League, but I did not get out there for spring training.
Yeah, we saw Verlander a couple of times down here in Arizona. And really, for 4 or 5 innings, he worked up. He looked pretty good. But you could tell in that 4th to 5th inning that the stuff was not the same. And he's sort of like that now. And I'll throw it to Connor and to Eric. What do you do with this Giants rotation? Do you do anything? What are your options, really? Eric, you can start with that.
Yeah, that's a great question, because what are the options? Again, Connor, you said it right. It's early, but also there's a little bit of a track record. The last few starts for Verlander haven't been exactly spot on. Same thing with Hicks. Roop, he's gotten through a little bit, and it looks like Webb's the only guy out there doing what does. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, you got Birdsong in the bullpen, but he's not really stretched out. I don't really know who is in Sacramento that you want to bring up at the same time. Who are you going to send down a phantom DL list. I don't know, but one thing I noticed, I mean, it's not like these guys are fatigued, right? It's the beginning of the season. You see Verlander throwing 96, 97. Hicks today was getting angry. He was in the hundreds today. Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe, Marty, maybe you're right. Maybe chalk it up to the weather because it was miserable. I think 2 of the 6 games were playable, so to speak. It's going to be a tough call for Verlander, or not for Verlander, but for Bob Melvin and the decisions that he's going to make, because the one good thing that the Giants got going is the bullpen. A bullpen has been lights out, and they've saved the Giants and also saved some of these starting pitchers. And the more you tax them, the more you're going to maybe get some vulnerabilities.
Well, it's only April. And Connor,
Right.
I'll say that for this bullpen, Sarah, you know it. By the way, Jeff Young is going to join us. He does Around the Foghorn, but he didn't get the link. So, Brian, if you're listening, send Jeff the link, and we'll get him on the show too. But go ahead, Connor. I think you were.
No, you ask what are the Giants going to do, and if the way they're treating their hitters and the lineup are any indication, in the Buster Posey, Bob Melvin regime, they're probably not going to do anything for a while. I think they want to give their veterans especially a long leash, establish some consistency, and I think they're going to bet on their track record before they make any sort of rash decision, which I think is how you might be able to define the last 5 or 6 years of Giants baseball, as some rash decision making, some of which worked out, some of which didn't. If this were last year, you'd probably see a lot more openers right now. Maybe you'd see Birdsong get stretched out and you try a 6-man rotation. But I don't think the Giants are going to turn to any of those options for a little while. I think they're going to try to let these guys figure it out. And Marty, you brought up there's a weather element, there's a road element. I think Buster Posey, of all people, likes the idea of veterans getting their 81 games in at Oracle Park, pitcher-friendly place, and trusting that they're going to show up in the way that they have over their careers.
All right. It's a good point. Sarah, looking at the Cubs for a second and that division, we did see Cincinnati. And as I said, Hunter Green is just maybe the best pitcher in baseball right now. I was thinking about it today. I said, could they get in this thing? I mean, they got Lodolo. They've got Singer, who got hit hard today by Seattle. Then, you go to Ashcraft and Nick Martinez and people like that. And I don't know, maybe Cincinnati is someone the Cubs should win this division. The Cubs look like the best team. But what about the rest of the division that you see so far?
It's a really interesting division for a couple of different reasons. And you're absolutely right that it should be the Cubs for the taking, but baseball never works out that way. Baseball has a way of doing its own thing. So with the Brewers, you've really seen them struggling offensively this season, but they've got a couple of pitchers in reserve who you really need to keep an eye on. I mean, I'm very curious what Brandon Woodruff is going to look like when he gets back into that rotation. We have no idea what he's going to look like post-injury, but when he was on in previous years, that was one of the best pitchers in baseball. And if he comes back as one of the best pitchers in baseball, I think that's going to be a huge boost to that Brewers team. They also have a couple of prospects that they have not called up yet. Jacob Mizorowski, Logan Henderson, that who could really be electric arms for the Brewers. I would never count out the Brewers. They have been kind of the class of the division for the last couple of years. And just because they're off to a slow start right now, I don't think that the Cubs should rest on their laurels there. The Cardinals offense has actually been better than people think it has. I think their team WRC plus, when I was looking at it earlier this week, was sitting right around 121, 122, right around where the Cubs is, right? That's a 20% better than league average offense at scoring runs. Now, they don't have the pitching prospects that the Brewers do, but you can never count out the St. Louis Cardinals. They always seem to find a way. And then, I actually think the best pitching in the division might be with the Pittsburgh Pirates, where you've got Paul Skeens, who I got to see Paul Skeens pitch twice last year in person. And let me tell you, that is a guy you go when he is on the mound. It is unbelievable. You cannot believe what you're seeing. But they've got Bubba Chandler waiting there in AAA. If the Pirates could pull together their offense and really take advantage of the pitching they have right now, that team could be particularly scary. And then, as you were saying with the Reds, I think the Reds have an offense that is super interesting. Matt McLain, if he can stay healthy, was putting up a 2020 season in 2023 when he got called up before. You also have some really interesting bats there. Christian Encarnacion Strand, who unfortunately just hit the injured list, but has some power potential. Ellie De La Cruz, who was on like a unbelievable stolen base and power stretch last year. So that don't count out them. And Tito Francona is one of the best managers in the history of the game. I think as he gets to know that team will play better. The thing I see in the Central is that's not a division where a wild card is coming out of it. It's too far behind the NL East. It's too far behind the NL West. So if you want to come out of the NL Central this year, you're going to have to win the division. And frankly, I don't think the Cubs are that far ahead of the other teams, particularly when they're losing a guy like Justin Steele. So it should be a tight race throughout.
Yeah, Jeff Young joins us from around the Foghorn. Jeff, I'm glad we got you the link. These things happen, the glitches of live internet, as we like to call it. But nice to have you here with us today. Really.
Yeah, happy to join you guys. I was listening just a few minutes ago. Good stuff
Good.
so far.
All right, good. Glad to have you here. I want to comment on one thing that Sarah said. I agree. Our interest, being in the National League West, the Giants are off to this great start, or all the wild card teams could come out of the West. I mean, legitimately, or who knows what the Phillies. I'm not that impressed with the Phillies either, to tell you the truth. I'm more impressed with the Mets, but we'll see where that takes us. But the Reds, you got them in a short series. You get Hunter Green and Lodolo back to back. And maybe Brady Singer, and you have Diaz in the bullpen, and you could have trouble. It's like the Giants. I'll throw it to Jeff. Everyone says, "Oh, you don't want to play the Giants ever." With that rotation. Some of the Reds get in this thing. If they could win the division, they could be trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I know Sarah already touched on the Reds. I mean, they look like a pretty good team with Hunter Green. I mean, he looks like not only an all-star, but a potential Cy Young candidate. Ellie De La Cruz. I know I'm just saying, I'm regurgitating the same stuff that's already been said.
That's all right.
Reds look like a good team. They can pitch, they can hit. They've got a superstar in De La Cruz. They've got some good supporting players around them. Terry Francona is a hell of a manager, and wherever he goes, he wins. So they're definitely a good team. They're in a good division to kind of compete. I mean, to me, I think the Cubs are the best team in the NL Central. I think they have a pretty good pitching staff, even after the Justin Steele injury. They can still pitch. They've got some good players. They can field the ball pretty well. But yeah, I think it's still, there's still an avenue for the Reds to win that division, even if I feel like the Cubs probably are in a driver's seat right now. Of course, it's also very early, so it's it's hard to put much weight into what we've seen so far. But yeah, the Reds look like they're a good team. They can pitch. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's why it's going to be interesting, Sarah, for you all year to see what happens out of the Central. But let me ask you this. You get Arizona tomorrow. You did see Arizona for a few, after being in Japan. I think you ended up playing Arizona next. But what do you think about Arizona? And Corbin Carroll's going crazy now, and Rodriguez pitched today, and Gallen and Kelly in there, and Brandon Pfaadt and all that stuff. What do you think about Arizona?
I think that Arizona team is much better than people give them credit for. It's easy to forget about Arizona, particularly in a West where you have the Dodgers and the Padres and the Giants sort of duking it out at the top of the division. Let me tell you, that Padres team is electric right now. I think the Padres were the hardest team that the Cubs have faced so far this year. It is not particularly close. The Dodgers didn't give the Cubs nearly as much trouble as the Padres did. But the Diamondbacks are interesting. One, they're a great team. They're a great hitting team. They do a lot of small things right. They put a lot of pressure on you with the way they run the bases. Corbin Carroll can run a lot, but so can Jake McCarthy, and so can Alec Thomas. And so whenever any of these guys gets on, you're at risk of a walk turning into a double or a triple real fast. The thing about the Diamondbacks is they match up against the Cubs particularly well. The way that their batters approach the game and the pitchers that the Cubs have, the Diamondbacks have done a ton of damage to the Cubs in recent years. They were actually the team a couple of years ago that kept the Cubs out of the playoffs when it looked like the Cubs were going to make it as one of the wild card teams. The Diamondbacks rolled them at Wrigley Field, and the Cubs just never got it back together. So I think that Diamondbacks team is dangerous. I think they are a team that could come out of the West, and I'm really hoping that the Cubs can win a series against them here at Wrigley Field, because they kind of need that right now if they're going to stay on top of the division.
Yeah. All right. Connor, let me ask you this. Let's talk about the division a little bit.
Sure.
And what, and Jeff, you too. I mean, we haven't seen any of these other teams yet. Sarah's, watched all these games.
All of them.
You're the expert in the West, but, the Giants are a game out of fourth place. The Dodgers jumped over them today at 14-6. Giants at 13-6. And as Sarah says, the Padres are 15-3. I don't know what they are. There's something like that.
Yeah.
So what's your take on the West as you sit here today?
Well, my take on the West is that no one in the American League has more than 11 wins, and 4 of the 5 teams in the NL West have 12 or more. So it's hard. It's, like a warped reality for these NL West teams that, the Diamondbacks of all teams could be sitting in 4th place. And listening to Sarah talk about the Diamondbacks, what I think when I think of the D-backs is a team that is just fast and athletic and is frankly all of the things that the Giants have not been for several years. And listening to all of the press conferences that Farhan Zaidi gave about wanting to get more athletic, and basically what I imagine in my mind's eye was emulating a lot of what the Diamondbacks do and the types of players they have. And the Giants up to this point hadn't really lived up to that until now we're seeing a guy like Jung-Hoo Lee establish himself, and what a joy and difference he is making in the outfield, in the lineup. And so when I think of the Diamondbacks, I think of dynamic and fast and a team that's going to be in the thick of the race all the way to the end. The Padres, I think some folks expected a little bit of a step down from, what they have been over the past couple of years, but it hasn't happened. There's been no foot off the gas. And with the star power that team has, I think it would be unreasonable to expect that, they slow down anytime soon. And of course, it's still hard to believe that the NL West is not the Dodgers to win. So the Giants have their work cut out for them, but we have no idea how the Giants are going to stack up against these teams because we haven't seen them. But I have a feeling the starting pitching is going to play a huge factor in that.
And that leads me right to Jeff. And I said this on our show last week. They haven't seen the West yet. There's 52 games out there, and you better win 13 of them against Colorado. Even with Clint Hurdle, the new hitting coach, they fired Bam Bam today, my buddy. I can't believe it. Come on, man, it's Bam Bam's fault, please.
2 weeks into the season, too.
Yeah, stop it. Stop. Come on. But let's talk about that aspect of it, is that, we talk about the Giants and Sarah beautifully describes the Central. The Giants have not seen anybody in the West yet. There's 52 games out there. That will decide what's going to happen. I don't care what you do out of the division.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say you're going to have to win those games. Those games against your division opponents. I mean, it's good that they're racking up wins now, but. It's looking like it's going to be a bloodbath with the NL West teams right now with the way that they're playing. Everyone brings something unique. As Connor mentioned, the Diamondbacks are just, they have sneaky talent. They're a fast team that gives a team like the Giants a tough challenge. The Padres, they can pitch. I really like that Nick Pivetta signing. They already had a good rotation even before that. Dodgers, it sounds like they probably need more star talent, right? They're not 15 games, in first place right now. So I think they need another all-star or 2, or maybe even 3. Who knows?
And someone said they have a 60-man roster. It's not even a 40 of them. They just keep bringing people up. Sarah, I know you want to jump in. I want to say one thing about the Padres. The Padres bullpen is just unbelievable. To watch their games and to see, the starting pitching has not been great. Pivetta has been great. Cease has got knocked around a little bit. But heck, they go to the pen. Good night.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I was about to go, because I've just watched that Padres bullpen just be absolutely lights out. They're leading baseball with a 1.52 ERA. They already have 9 saves. And everything I said about the Cubs bullpen being like a tale of two bullpens, you have a good bullpen and a bad bullpen. It doesn't feel that way when you're playing the Padres. The Padres get to their bullpen and you're like, oh, we're done. Jeremiah Estrada is very good. Jason Adam is very good. Robert Suarez is very good. Like you are just searching for hits when you get into that bullpen. And I really feel like that's a weapon for the Padres right now. And what's wild, and I know it's early, but you look at those bullpen stats, the second best bullpen by ERA is the Giants, which you all get to see quite a bit, and I'm sure all of you are aware of, but the Dodgers are nowhere on this list. The Dodgers have really been searching for something at the end of games, and they haven't found it yet.
Yep. And Tanner Scott he's got some saves, but believe me, they're not pretty. It's like Alvarado. Alvarado's got a couple of saves in this series, but let me tell you, he makes you very nervous the way he pitches. So, yeah, I think the Dodger bullpen is going to be something. All right, we'll take a break. Here's the next question, though. And I put it out, and the guys told me it went viral. Believe me, we had over 100,000 views of this. And that is, when you look at the Giants team, it's basically Farhan's team. I mean, Verlander and Adames and Koss, but he had Koss last year. Sam Huff, they're Trevino. That's it. Basically, this is Farhan's team that he put together, and everyone hates him. And meanwhile, now it's the greatest team we've ever seen. So what happened over the winter? Well, what happened here? Is it Bob Melvin? Is it Posey? Is it just development of young players? But I want to get the expert's opinion from you guys as to what you think the difference is. And we'll do that right after these messages.
Gene Bagato checked in from the Tides up in Bodega Bay, and he said while the crab season hasn't produced great quantities, the crabs that have been delivered have been excellent. Down at the wharf, fresh crab is readily available for guests to enjoy, either in the restaurant or in the fish market to take home, along with all of the other varieties of seafood delicacies. And across the highway up at the inn, large, comfortable rooms are readily available at winter rates for those who want to get away but don't want to deal with 8 hours driving up to Tahoe. So if you're looking to get away for the day or a weekend, remember the Tides Wharf and the Inn at the Tides in beautiful Bodega Bay. It's been a pleasure working with Rick Robin this year. Rick Robin, ROBBEN, NapaConstruction.com. Rick, the last time you were on with us, you told us about kitchen and bath remodeling, but there's a lot more going on up in your area.
Yes, there is. ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units, which are known as granny units. We can do your existing garage, attached garage, even building a new unit in the back. And so what we do is come out, bring our architect out there. Such a great thing. No sewer hookup fees, no water hookup fees. So that's what we do.
Rick, how does one start the process with you? How does one get in touch with you?
Oh, you call Tammy, 707-332-7575, 7 days a week.
Rick Robin, ConstructionNapa.com. Rick, the thing I like about this, no problem for me. You come out with the plans, the permits, everything is in-house, no fees, and you get a new unit that you can rent out and get money back on your investment right away. I like it, Rick.
Thanks, Marty. Love talking to you.
Rick Robin, ConstructionNapa.com. Hey, it's Marty, and I'm here to tell you that it's time to discover the islands, and of course that means River Islands. They're celebrating 10 years of bringing the good life to Bay Area homebuyers. What's more, Del Webb, one of America's best-known builders for active adults in the 55 and over crowd, has just opened 3 neighborhoods at River Islands. They're building a huge community center on its own lake, all for buyers looking for a great lifestyle and a little less maintenance. I like that. Homes are priced from the 600,000s. Start your tour online at riverislands.com. Isn't it time for you to discover the islands? It sure is for me.
All right, thank you. The Giants strike out like crazy. They had trouble today. They struck out 12 times. They've had trouble straight. They're like in the top 5 in the most strikeouts, right, Jeff? I think something like that in the National League. They strike out a lot. Adames strikes out a lot. But they are winning. And they do run a little more. I mean, they started Yaz today and stayed out of the double play. Almost had the guy beat it out to first base when they tried to get Yaz at second. They're doing things. There's a different looking team. So what is it, in your opinion, the difference between last year and this year?
For me, I mean, I think the big difference is, and as you alluded to it previously, there hasn't been a whole lot of roster turnover. I mean, there's only like 3 or 4 guys who are on this year's roster compared to last year. It's like Justin Verlander, Adames, Sam Huff, and Lou Trevino. The two things that stand out to me, what the biggest differentiator are, is health. Jung-Hoo Lee, Wilmer Flores, a bunch of guys are healthy this year. If you go back to this time last year, I mean, the rotation, like 2 weeks into the season, was like falling apart already. It was like Logan Webb, Kyle Harrison, and you kind of had to hope for a rain out or two, just because they didn't have any depth. But this year they've been very healthy. They've had no transactions so far. They've had no players really on the injured list, with a couple of exceptions. The other thing that stands out is what they're doing with runners in a scoring position. That was a weakness for them last year. It's one of those numbers that can vary from year to year. It's not the most, it's not the most maybe reliable thing to look at year over year. But right now, they have a 873 OPS, which is second in baseball with runners in scoring position. They're just capitalizing on that. That's probably going to normalize throughout the year. Guys like Mike Yastrzemski, Jung-Hoo Lee, Wilmer Flores, they've all been exceptional with runners in scoring position right now. And that'll probably come down to earth at some point, but that's really the big thing that stands out to me right now. When guys are on base and out on second and third, the Giants are driving them in more often than not.
Well, I'll tell you, coming out of spring training, I thought the trouble was the hitting. I yelled and screamed all winter long for Pete Alonso. I said, they need Pete Alonso. You flip that batting order, you want to see him. And they hit like crazy. Now, you're right. Jung-Hoo Lee, for me, looks like a batting champion. I mean, he looks like, because only one, Luis Ariz is the only guy who hits 300, in the whole league. Well, I think Jung-Hoo Lee's going to hit 350. So, he's there. Flores, of course, is doing what he does, but they're going to slow down. And we're going to talk in a second about some of the players who are off to a slow start. But Connor, let me get your thoughts on the Giants. What's the difference in 1 year? Now, I will say 100,000 people looked at this tweet and we got all sorts of answers. A lot of it was Posey. A lot of it was Melvin. A lot of it was good health. A lot of it was maturity of players. But there was a vibe that's different. And that seemed to be the biggest thing that people talk about. So where do you go with it?
Yeah. I was looking at what the people had to say to your tweet because I was curious as well. And you said the word vibe seems to be what most people are centering on, which honestly, I look at that and say that that's what people are saying because we don't really know what else to say. So you look at Buster Posey comes in, he's the chief baseball officer. He's the Chiefs vibes officer. He was brought in to mark a cultural shift in this organization. And it just so happens after 3 or so weeks of baseball, it appears that it's working because you're right, Marty. As you pointed out earlier, all of these players except Willie Adames and Justin Verlander were already here under Farhan's regime. And it just so happens that they put together a really great 3 weeks of baseball, much better than maybe we anticipated. And I think Jeff hit on something that was very top of mind for me, which is that they're just getting hits when they need to get hits. And they were just so miserable to watch at times last year with runners in scoring position. Even Dwayne Kuiper would make some offhand comments on the air. He's doing a read for tequila or something, and he says he's going to need a sip of that if, they don't knock in the runner from third with less than 2 outs. It was just such a sticking point last year. And so far, that has been when the offense has been at their best because some of their big stars, like an Adames, like a Chapman, Lamont Wade, have not been doing overall that much at the plate at all, but their hits have seemed to come with runners on. So that's how the Giants have been able to out-hit the rotations mistakes and out-hit some of these first inning holes we've seen, or just early game holes we've seen on this road trip.
Yeah, and the defense too.
Yeah.
They kicked the ball around a little bit. I think the game's a little too fast for Koss, to tell you the truth, in watching him. And, Wisely went through this last year. The game is a quick game in the big leagues. And as a middle infielder, you've got to be on it. But I think there is something to this vibe that they know they're playing. They know they're not getting sent down. If they go 0 for 4, they know they're in there the next day, and I think there is something to that. So we'll see where it goes. Sarah, from where you sit, what do you see with this ball club? It is really the same team as last year. Well, let's talk about Adames too. You can give us something on Adames.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, I mean, Willie Adames hasn't even hit yet. And when Willie Adames starts to hit, y'all are going to love Willie Adames. It's a 2020 guy. It's a great clubhouse presence. He's an awesome guy to have on your team. But I actually, one of the things I love about this sport, it's such a long season and small differences, small things make huge differences, right? Like the Cubs are kind of the same lineup plus a Kyle Tucker. And it turns out that the Cubs had a lot of guys who were just good enough, great as a second, love that guy hitting fifth, don't love him hitting second. You add Kyle Tucker to that mix, Seiya Suzuki plays better, Nico Horner plays better. I think the Giants are having a similar type of situation, right? It's very small differences in the clubhouse, in how they show up every day, have made a difference. And hitting is contagious, not hitting is contagious. When you start to believe you're going to get that hit in the 8th inning, it happens more. I mean, I don't know what else to say about this. I'm not trying to be superstitious or like go into every baseball cliche ever here. But what I see with the Giants, what I see with the Padres, what I see with the Cubs, who are all functionally similar teams to where they were at this point last year, 2 years ago, when maybe they weren't having the same type of success they're having now, is just tiny shifts in culture, tiny shifts in personnel. And you're seeing the fruits of those labors. Part of the reason baseball is the greatest game, because honestly, you're going to win 60 games, you're going to lose 60 games, and what you do with the other 60 is really what matters. And I think we're seeing that.
Yeah. The Giants have a couple of play. One is, I'm glad you talked about Adames, and I'd like to be here when he starts hitting. Is he ever going to get a pitch to hit? Come on,
he's going to get pitches to hit. You're going to love it.
You throw anything on the outside part of the plate, and as this, he's turning into Encarnacion Strand. He's the popcorn guy who's going to throw popcorn at him. We'll start hitting that. At some point, I'd like to see him protect the plate a little bit more. Guys, am I crazy?
You got 7 years to watch him protect the plate.
He's going to be here for a while.
Point, you got to be selective, right?
Yeah, I think. Willie Adames, perfect guy in the perfect situation for the Giants in that they're going to give him the leash and let him figure it out. And maybe they let him figure it out from the 6 or 7 hole and not at the top of the lineup. But even that would feel like a drastic shift, much more of a drastic shift than I would expect, at least in April. I think they're really going to give him time to figure it out. And I'm really curious to see if the player Sarah's describing comes to life before our eyes, because until then, I'll wait and see.
I think he will. And let me give you something to hope on here. Willie Adames is a guy who's going to strike out about a quarter of the time, but he's actually struck out a little bit less with the Giants than he did with the Brewers last year. What you're seeing from Willie Adames right now is that his BABIP is like 264. So the hits that he's getting are not falling for hits. They're turning into outs for whatever reason. That's generally something that's going to stabilize over the course of, 50 games or so. So I imagine that Willie Adames has a hot streak right around the corner. I don't see anything in the profile that indicates he's forgotten how to hit or he's going to strike out 30% of the time or something. He might be pressing a little bit because he's on a new team. He got the big deal. But he's not striking out more than he has before. And he does have the power that will play as things heat up.
Yeah, I think he is pressing a little bit. And if they were 6-13, instead of 13-6, it would be trouble. But being that they're playing well, Jung-Hoo Lee is picking them up all the time, and so is Chapman, who's hot again. As I said, Chapman's the streakiest guy ever. He's hot again. But yeah, I love Willie. He laughs, he smiles. He's given a pro vibe to them, and I think he's really a good addition. I guess we'll never really see true plate discipline. But when he gets those mistakes, which he's starting to get some more, he's starting to hit the ball a little, even the foul balls he's hitting. He hit one, he pulled one that I thought was going to be a home run, but he pulled it. So we'll see. But that's another one.
Was there anything about him defensively, Marty, that you've noticed or think
him
so far? Yeah.
Well, what I was told was don't expect Crawford.
Yeah.
He's okay. He did not metrically, and Sarah, you may know this, and Jeff, you guys follow it. Metrically, he did not have a great year last year, but he did the year before that, and I can't explain it. but I don't get the feeling at short. I'm looking at the next Omar Vizquel, but he's okay. He's okay.
Yeah. I generally agree with that, which is the only reason I asked is I'm wondering maybe if I had to check my own expectations a little bit. You sign a shortstop for 7 years, and I'm already sitting here a few weeks in wondering how many years he's actually going to play shortstop for the Giants. It doesn't seem like they have the shortstop for the next 7 years.
Well, they need the bat
Yeah.
from him. That's basically, the bat, which brings me to this question. They have not made any moves, and the Cubs made moves up and down. Today they churned about 4 people up and down. Giants haven't made a move yet. Are they due to make a move here? Do you see them making a move, Jeff? Do you see something coming?
Not really, not at this point in time, unless there's an injury. I was thinking with Jordan Hicks's start today, if he wasn't able to get out of the first inning and they really had to rely on the bullpen, there may have been a chance that they'd bring somebody like a Sean Jelly, just to give him a little extra coverage in the bullpen over the weekend. But I don't know. I just don't really see any moves that need to be made currently. I mean, you could make the case that somebody like Brett Wisely would probably be a better fit on this roster, but it's the bench, and Bob Melvin really doesn't use the bench all that often. So I mean, we're talking about a marginal maybe improvement here. So I don't really see anything. They're winning games. I mean, they're 4-3 in this road trip. They played against 2 pretty good teams. I think they're still feeling good about where they're at. So nothing in my mind suggests that they're going to make a move anytime soon, unless an injury pops up, which could happen.
Okay. Connor, what do you think?
Yeah. I agree with what Jeff's sharing. I was thinking, maybe you swap out Cost for Brett Wisely. Wisely, I just checked, has kind of a slow start at the plate to the minor league season. And yeah, it's fair to wonder how long of a leash they're going to give a guy like Cost. But, if he's only playing once or so a week, and he does, defensively, he seems more sound, but, he had a couple miscues. So yeah, you wonder how long of a leash they'll give him, but also if he's not playing that often, it's probably not a move they're going to rush into.
Yeah, the catcher for me, Huff.
Yeah,
he got a couple of hits the other day. Went to right field, drove in a run. Actually, Bailey, I can't believe that he's not hitting any better, but he'll run into one every once in a while and drive in some runs. But I don't know. Stassi is switch off to Stassi from Huff. That's maybe something I could see. Yeah. But as I say, and Jeff, you're right, and Sarah, this, when you're winning, you don't necessarily have to do anything unless there's a real emergency on the roster. But from my point of view, I would like to see maybe Wisely, but I think they have honored Koss with all his hard work to get to the big leagues. You're not going to send him out in 2 weeks. Farhan would do that. Yep. But Posey's not going to do that. And then with the catcher, I think also you would just want to be patient with Huff and expect more from him. So we'll see where that goes. But I think the other one that I want to talk about with you guys is Ramos. I love him. I love the swing. He just goes up to kill the ball. He's got, he'll chase like they all do. They strike out too much. I'll say it again. But boy, when he makes contact, I like Ramos a lot. I do. Connor, let you start with that.
Yeah. He's a lightning bolt in a lineup that has been looking for several of those for a while now. He is a whole lot of fun to watch up there, Marty. You're so right. And going back to last year where he was basically on his last chance with the Giants, getting called up, forcing his way to the bigs, and just making good on the call-up it was so wholesome and fulfilling as a fan. This is what you want. This is what you hope for, guys. The Giants offensively have not really had a lot of success stories like that over the last many years. So it was so fulfilling. And yeah, he's having a little bit of a rough go of it to start the season, the first few weeks. But, when, again, he's one of the guys that's getting hits in the big situations. I guess he's had a few strikeouts with a runner on third and less than 2 outs, but that's what he's going to try to do. He seems to fit the profile of the previous regime where they told their hitters not to change their profile at all, no matter the situation. Swing hard in case you hit it. And he stays true to that every at-bat.
Yeah, I like him. Jeff, you like him?
Yeah, he's going to run into a bunch of pitches. I have no question about his power upside. I think there's pretty easy 20 plus home run power there. It's just, the question I have is the hitting ability outside of the home runs he hits. Like, is he going to put up enough offensive value outside of that? And that's kind of where I'm at. Obviously, he's going to be in the lineup whenever there's a left-handed pitcher on the mound because he does so well in those matchups. He's not as good against right-handed pitching, but I think as long as he's hitting for a little bit of power in those matchups, that's what counts. And one thing I do need to I feel like I need to bring up with Ramos is his defense. I mean, there was a misplay a couple of days ago, which I just feel like he was out of position. Like I don't know if it was a bad jump or anything like that, but it just felt like he couldn't get to it, and that's fine. But overall, the defensive metrics I've been pulled up, they're all pretty negative. It's early on, and left field's one of those positions where you can kind of overlook defense, especially at Oracle Park, where it's a pretty small area to cover. But that's just something that's kind of popping up a little bit. Obviously, they've moved on from the idea of him being a center fielder. He spent a lot of time out there. Not really his fault last season. They just didn't have any other depth options. But that's just something that stands out to me right now is his defensive numbers. For however much weight you want to put into them, they're all trending negatively right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The ball that was up in the air should have been caught the other night and ended up making that inning crazy for the Giants, and they lost the game based on that. So, yeah, you got it. But I like the way he hustles. I like the swing. He does chase, but I like him. I like him as a player. And Sarah knows this in Wrigley. If you can hit the ball out of the park, they'll park you in left field and let you stand there forever. And when I grew up, the great Ralph Kiner, who led the National League in home runs 7 years in a row, believe me, he couldn't move from you to Connor. That's about as far as he could go. But they put him in left field, and that's where you end up putting people who can't play very well defensively. But in today's game, you got to play. The game is different than it was, 60 years ago. You got to play defense, which brings me to this. Every team needs a star. And Sarah, you saw Ohtani and the whole Dodger retinue. You saw Machado and Tatis. Corbin Carroll is going crazy. Marte, not so much. You have a legitimate superstar in Kyle Tucker. And that may be the difference in this ball club. Will the Cubs keep him? And you tell me what you think of Tucker.
Oh, I love Kyle Tucker. I was very happy when the Cubs got Kyle Tucker, but I also think it's important to say, that they paid a hefty price for 1 year of Kyle Tucker. Hayden Wesneski is a solid number 4, number 5 starter. I actually think he's going to be a better pitcher with the Astros than he ever was with the Cubs. I think they're probably going to get more out of that sweeper than the Cubs were able to get out of it. Isaac Paredes he's a very park dependent type of guy, and his power was never going to play at Wrigley. It's a really good fit for the Crawford boxes there at Minute Maid Park. However, the real gem in that deal was Cam Smith, who I didn't think was going to make the 2025 Astros, but did make the 2025 Astros. And it is, I don't say this is no shade to Matt Shaw, but it is interesting that the Cubs were going to have to part with one of Matt Shaw or Cam Smith. One of these guys is playing in Major League Baseball right now, and the other one just got sent to AAA. And Cam Smith is the guy who is still playing on the Astros roster while Matt Shaw is playing in Iowa. And I say all of that to say, if the Cubs do not extend Kyle Tucker, that is an insane price to pay for 1 year of a superstar on your team. The Chicago Cubs have had a problem for a few years now of being one of these teams, and I think you all will appreciate this as Giants fans, who has not been able to make the big deal for the superstar. They have not been able to do the 10, 12-year, $450, $500 million deal for anyone. The largest contract in the history of the Chicago Cubs is still Jason Hayward's deal, which is something that, I see the look on Connor's face. That is pathetic.
Who it was going to be.
It is pathetic for a team that plays on the north side of Chicago that brings in the type of revenue and the type of attendance numbers that the Cubs do year after year. They have never done a deal that has multiple years on it that starts with a 2 and $200 million, right? Like that. The Jason Hayward deal was a $180 million deal. and it is not enough. So the Cubs really need to get into that game where top tier free agents feel like it is a destination opportunity. I do think Kyle Tucker is going to have an insanely cool summer on the north side of Chicago. Wrigley is an amazing place to be at 1:20 on a Friday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon. And they should offer him 10 to 12 years, a deal that probably is $450 to $500 million. And they should feel very lucky if he takes it. But if they don't do that for whatever reason, I think it'll be a long time before this Cubs team is taken seriously in free agency again, because frankly, they should have done that deal 4 or 5 years ago.
Boy, well said. I'm available if they want me. I mean, I'll sign. Yeah, look at the Giants. Until Adames, right? Guys, Posey was the only other. Not that they didn't try. They did try. But just to follow up and finish one thing, the Giants have a superstar, I think, in Jung-Hoo Lee. I tell you honestly, I'll say it again. The league doesn't have 300 hitters. I think he'll lead the league in hitting. And I think he's got a real shot, depending on how they do, to be in the top 5 of MVP for this year. So you need a star. You need that carrier. You need someone like that. And I think the Giants finally have fallen into Jung-Hoo Lee. And that's how well he's doing. Next issue, and we'll take a break, and I'll give you time to think about it. Give me a surprise that you've seen so far, and give me a surprise for the rest of the summer. And it may be, I'll give you a hint, it could be the Braves, off to such a bad start. But, hey, the surprise may be they may be there at the end. So I'll let you think about it. And I'll ask you that question when we come back right after this.
Fans, joining us is Grant Power, President and CEO of Nations. Grant, last year we talked about the amazing breakfast at Nations. I'm going to ask you this. What's your favorite lunch?
I'm pretty split. I guess I'm kind of like a pitcher who has 2 favorite pitches they like leaning on. I'd say half the time I do the hamburger and half the time I do the wild salmon burger. It really depends on which protein you want. We love our beef supplier in Northern California. We've been with them for decades. We test our beef all the time. We sell ocean-caught wild salmon. Friends don't let friends eat farm salmon. It's absolutely delicious. To mix it up, I guess it's like a pitcher who has a 2-seamer and a 4-seamer, or maybe a 4-seamer and a cutter. I actually go grilled onions on my hamburger half the time and raw onions the other half. Today at lunch, I got the French fries, but half the time I get the onion rings, and I had a wonderful slice of pecan pie. There's something for everybody, whether you like hot dogs or grilled cheese. It's really up to the individual what mood they're in, but my go-to is either the beef with the hamburger or the wild salmon, which is absolutely delicious.
Wow, I love it. Grant Power, President, CEO of Nations. Grant, thanks so much.
Pleasure being on.
Hello again, Marty Lurie here to talk to you about my good friends at Georgie Brothers, the largest family-owned furniture store in the entire Bay Area. Right now, and good through May 26th, you can save hundreds of dollars on my favorite line of furniture, Stressless. I own Stressless furniture in my home, and I can tell you it's the most comfortable place to sit in my house. Visit them at GeorgieBrothers.com. That's GIORGIBROS.com. Remember, tell them that Marty sent you. Fans, great news. If you enjoy Original Joe's, there's a new Original Joe's coming to Walnut Creek, opening late May, early June. Let me tell you a little bit about it. It is going to be fabulous. 300 seats, 13,000 square feet, 3 outdoor patios with 90 outside seats, a full exhibition counter and cocktail lounge. That's the best. And the cocktail lounge will have a multitude of TVs to watch the Giants and the dreaded A's if you want to. It's the first opening of an Original Joe's in 70 years in a new market, and this is really going to be something. 9 years since opening in Westlake, so this is going to be fabulous. It will have a private dining room with accommodations up to 40 people, with its own private bar and patio. It fits Walnut Creek like a glove. This is going to be something else. I can't wait to do some events at the new Original Joe's in Walnut Creek, coming late May, early June.
Terrific. Thank you, Ryan, for putting that together with Eric. Eric, thank you very much. All right. Surprises, disappointments. What are you? Come up with something. All right, Sarah, I'll let you start.
So I don't know if this is a total surprise because it was kind of on my radar as something to keep an eye on, but that the park out there in Sacramento that the Athletics are playing in has bandbox potential. The Cubs scored 35 runs in that park in 3 games. And that might have a little bit to do with the pitchers that the Athletics were throwing. But there have been just some crazy numbers going out there. And that extends to some of the guys on the Athletics who are playing out of their shoes right now. Tyler Soderstrom is one of the top 10 players in baseball by most metrics, depending on what you're sorting by and how you're looking at it. And I don't think, we were just talking about Jung-Hoo Lee, he's another surprise for a lot of people, maybe not for Giants fans because they knew what he could do. But Tyler Soderstrom was kind of in that exact same range of like, who is this guy? This isn't going to be a thing. And he is absolutely raking and killing it right now. I would keep an eye on that park in Sacramento as things heat up this season. I think it has the potential to just have some crazy games happening at it. And Sutter Health Park, y'all, like it might be the pitcher's park of the PCL, but it is definitely going to be a hitter's park in MLB.
Wow, beautiful. Very good. All right, Connor, what do you think?
I think my surprise has to be over in the American League Central. Scott Harris's Detroit Tigers are a lot of fun. And I don't know if I knew what to make of them coming into the season, but they are pretty good. They got a real good shot to win this American League Central. Their pitching is fantastic. They're led by the Cy Young Award winner, Tarek Skubal. But Jack Flaherty's been great. Casey Mize, the former first overall pick, he's been great to start the season. Just with that core of pitching, you're set up for success alone. And then on the hitting side, Spencer Torkelson, the other former first overall pick, he's gotten out to a great start. Kerry Carpenter's been good. Riley Green is good. I don't pay super close attention to the American League Central, but I've been looking at the Tigers and thinking like they got something good going.
I also have to say, Scott Harris, former Cubs guy, former Giants guy, we share that lineage. Go Scott Harris, go.
Nice man, too. Nice man. Yeah, I like the Tigers have another pitcher, don't they, Jeff? Jax or Job or something.
Jackson Job,
Jackson
he's another guy who's been
His
great.
whole name, that's his whole name. Yeah, he looked terrific. We saw him in one of the exhibition games, I think, up here. He
That's
looked
right.
really good. Yeah. All right, that's a good one. I like that. Good one, Connor. All right, Jeff, where do you go?
I'm going to go with the AL East. I don't follow a bunch of baseball outside of the Giants, but right now I expected them to be probably a lot closer to the NL West at this point in the year. I know it's early and all that, but I'm looking at some of these records like Yankees, Blue Jays are in second place. That's not a team I expected to be in second place in what I expected to be a pretty good division. Baltimore Orioles are 8-10. They loaded up on back end rotation arms and probably that was probably a mistake. And yeah, I mean that's just kind of what stands out to me. I was expecting the AL East to be a little stronger. I mean the Giants, took 2 or 3 from the Yankees. And that's the number 1 team in that division right now. The Yankees are a good team, but outside of that, I mean, if first impressions mean anything, no one else in that division looks like they're going to put up much of a challenge. But long season, that could change pretty quickly.
Has anyone seen a team? Well, Sarah, you probably have because you saw the West. That you'd worry about if you're the Giants. Say, boy, something. I got to worry about that team because let's think about the Giants' schedule so far. A Yankee team that was a little depleted and crazy weather and injuries. The pitching staff is non-existent. You get Houston. We saw how they hit. We saw the Reds, the way they played. The Phillies. My surprise may be, something? The Braves may overtake the Phillies. I mean,
Yeah,
that's crazy. But, I mean, the Phillies, after you get past Schwarber, who hits? They're lucky to get a hit after you get past those guys. So, I don't know. I'll throw that out there. What do you think?
I mean, I think this Padres team is kind of unbelievable right now. Watching what they've been doing has been, and I'm not just talking about the record. The Cubs have had quite a number of competitive games. I don't think anybody's played a schedule as hard as the Cubs so far this season. Lots of games against the Dodgers, lots of games against the Diamondbacks teams that's pretty good. Games against the Padres. Those games against the Athletics are a little bit easier, but I'm telling you that park is wild. But I think that Padres team, the starting pitching is good. The bullpen is good. Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado, that is a lineup that doesn't quit. They lost Jackson Merrill, and it doesn't even feel like the team is hurting from that at all. I do want to slide into one thing that you said there, though, about Kyle Schwarber, because I am digging Kyle Schwarber in a contract year. The dude is hitting like 270 and he's got 6 home runs, and it just feels like Kyle Schwarber is going to go off this season. And I don't know if the Phillies can hold their ground or if the Braves will overtake them or not, but I think Kyle Schwarber is going to get paid again.
Interesting. Yeah, he's hitting 4th too, and they need him. They don't hit for me. All right, I love that, the Padres stuff. I forgot about Jackson Merrill. He's been out as well. All right, that's good insight for us. All right, go ahead, Jeff. Any teams scare you so far that we've seen?
I mean, I know Sarah's gonna like this, but I've been, I've liked the Cubs from afar for a long time. I think some of their roster issues are not really a reflection of the front office, but probably more of a reflection of ownership. They've had a very tough schedule this year so far, and I know Sarah already touched on it. They played the Dodgers, the Padres. They look like they could be a really good team this year. Kyle Tucker, I mean, I loved that addition to that lineup with what looked like with what should be a pretty good rotation. They've also got a pretty good they've got a pretty strong farm system on top of that. So that's the team that kind of stands out to me right now. I figured I kind of expected that they'd be pretty good this year, but given the teams they faced, I think they're in a really good position record wise, and just being in the NL Central, which is probably not as strong as some of the other divisions, but yeah, they've done a nice job so far. So
right.
that's a team to be on the lookout for.
Yeah, Giants Cubs. That'll be a good one to see when that comes down. All right, Connor.
I look ahead at the schedule and I see the Brewers and the Rangers, and into May, it's a whole mishmash of still non-NL West teams. The Giants got 5 games, 2 against the Padres at the end of the month, and then a series against the Rockies. And that's all the division games through the end of May. And all I can think of is that they need to stockpile as many wins as they possibly can in that stretch, because it is going to be the summer of the NL West, and the Giants are going to need to give themselves as much of a cushion as they can. In terms of teams the Giants have already played, we talked about them at the top of the show, but I think the Giants are glad they're not going to have to see the Reds again, probably for this season. But you never know. I think the Giants got to feel good that they went, I believe they went 3-3 against them. Yeah, split the 6 games, had the opening day comeback in the 9th inning. They got to feel good that they got out of there with their 3 wins, because that is a pesky team that's got some sneaky good hitters. They've obviously got Hunter Green. They've got sneaky good pitching as well. That's a team that I could see being a gnat in the Giants' ear, and I think they got to be happy that they're not going to see him on the schedule again.
Well, 2 things for me. One is Colorado could lose 120, simply because of this division. They can't ever be taken lightly. You must beat them. You can't fool around with Colorado, and they've got the West to deal with. They could lose 120.
The Dodgers scored 7 runs against them before the end of the 1st inning last night.
I saw a good part of it. Marquez, just at the end of it, he said, "Please, someone come get me." That was the end of him. The other one is Matos. I think if there is going to be a move, I think Matos is the one. I really do. The play he made in center field today was not a center fielder's play. I mean, you've got to catch that ball. He almost knocked it over the fence. And he's swinging the bat. He's swinging. He's a bat-to-ball guy. But there's no room for him. I think Matos could be the one who goes to AAA to get him at bats. I think he may be the first to go. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key for him and somebody like Casey Schmidt is just to get it every day at bat. So I kind of don't like them being on the bench. I think Bob Melvin, especially with Matos, has made a concerted effort to get him a few more at bats than he generally would if it was a different 4th outfielder. But Mike Yastrzemski's hitting the ball so well that you can't really sit him on the bench. The thing that stands out to me about Matos is just from a profile standpoint, being kind of a tweener. He's not, he's not good enough defensively to be a center fielder, even though his bat profile is better there, in my opinion, with the contact skills and everything. And he doesn't hit for enough power to be a corner outfielder. So that's kind of what stands out to me. I think he could still be a very good everyday player, but that's just the fact that he can't cover center field. It was a really bad play today. that if the ball hits that much of the glove, you got to catch it.
Come on, you've watched enough baseball. You got to
Yeah.
make the play. Well, we'll see what happens to them this weekend. They get Anderson and Kikuchi. Is Yaz going to? Well, that's going to be the issue. Will Matos play, or will Yaz play against Anderson and Kikuchi? If Yaz plays when the Brewers come to town Monday, but they don't have anybody to bring up.
I was going to say, you bring McRae? Does McRae come back? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good. Probably not. Jeff, I don't know. Just very briefly as we wrap it up, anyone in the minor leagues doing anything at the AAA level?
Yeah, I mean, I think McRae is still pretty raw offensively, and I think the best thing for him is just to get every day at bats. And he's not really tearing the cover off the ball in AAA. So that's kind of where they're at. They have so many outfielders in a 40-man roster, and they have so few options. It's kind of funny that contrast right there. So I don't know if they have to go out and get a fourth outfielder. I mean, that could be on the agenda down the road. But yeah, it's just it's not the most pressing need, but it's just something that stands out, and you want to see Matos get every day at bats, and he's not getting that right now.
Yeah, let's see what he does, what they do this weekend with the lineup. That'll tell us something. Well, I love having everyone on. This is terrific. This is what I like. Marty Lurie and Friends. We just talk ball, and it's a lot of fun to do it. Sarah, Giants come to Chicago May 5th, 6th, and 7th. So get ready. You'll be on the show that week somehow. We'll get you on. And we love having you on. I appreciate it. And Connor, postcards, very good. And Jeff around the Foghorn, very popular. I got to meet Jeff's parents last weekend at the Hotel Via. And they're big listeners of the show, and I appreciate that. But next week, next Thursday, it's, another 4-game series, with the Brewers. It'll be a day game next Thursday, so we'll have our show 6 o'clock next Thursday night. So I appreciate everybody listening, and subscribe. It's good to do that, I'm told. And we'll catch up with you. But this was a lot of fun. I appreciate everyone being on. Thank you.